The year was 1991, a year that turned out to be a turning point in Indian history. India was on the edge of economic collapse. The country was facing a really bad economic crisis, something no one could have imagined. The value of the rupee was falling every day, like sand slipping through fingers. And the markets in Delhi and Mumbai were filled not with business, but with worry. There was a feeling of uncertainty everywhere. What used to be a sign of safety, something people trusted completely, those currency notes were now reminding people of their shrinking value. The worth of their hard-earned money was dropping fast. This crisis didn't just pop up out of nowhere. IT wasn't something that happened overnight. IT had been building for years, slowly, quietly, simmering like a volcano inside. IT got worse because of global problems and messed up local policies. Those policies that were stuck and global shocks together made this crisis even deeper. The Gulf War made oil prices shoot up, which put even more pressure on the country's economy. Meanwhile, political instability left India without a leader. Like a boat without a rudder, the country was being tossed by the waves of crisis. The licensed Raj economy, which was made to protect, meant to keep Indian industries safe, became a cage that stopped growth. IT was holding back new ideas and competition. Foreign exchange reserves were gone. The country's foreign money savings were almost completely used up. There was barely anything left for even a few weeks of imports. Importing things became almost impossible, leading to a shortage of important goods. The government's money boxes were empty. The government didn't even have money to meet its own needs. An emptiness echoed in the treasury. There was a scary, quiet warning of the storm to come. Every day brought India closer to not being able to pay its debts, a threat hanging over the country's future. A shame that would bother the country forever, a stain that might never go away. In the power hallways of New Delhi, where policies are made and the future is decided, fear had replaced political showboating. Lines of worry were clearly visible on the leaders' faces. The dream of a self-reliant India, which had been nurtured for generations, which had been cherished since independence, was about to fall apart. IT felt like all the struggle after independence would be for nothing. The storm had arrived, and this time, IT was threatening to completely destroy India's economy. Inside the Reserve Bank of India, officers were looking at ledgers that spelled disaster. Every entry, every number was like a warning, pointing to danger ahead. They knew the country was at a critical point. Foreign reserves had dropped to less than $1 billion. This was a scary situation, showing that the country barely had any money left for imports. India couldn't pay for fuel, medicine, or raw materials. The lack of important things caused chaos across the country. The country's engine was slowing down, factories were closing, and production had stopped. In the governor's office, the ticking clock was a harsh reminder that time was running out. Every passing moment brought the country closer to defaulting. Defaulting would make India a global outcast. No loans, no trust, complete isolation, completely cut off from the international community. RBI Governor S. Venkata Ramanan was on the phones, looking for a way out of this maze. A path that could pull the country out of this economic crisis. Headlines screamed, "India on the brink of bankruptcy." For citizens, this crisis wasn't a distant problem anymore. IT was a real, present danger. Whispers of fear spread from tea shops to dinner tables. The government was like a giant with no power left, unable to perform its basic duties. Empty treasuries became a scary symbol of a nation's lost wealth. Every tick of the clock was a countdown to disaster. India stood on a cliff, looking into the abyss. One wrong step and IT would fall. A fall from which recovery might be impossible. In Delhi, a new government came to power under the leadership of PV Narasimha Rao, a moment that promised to change the country's direction. IT was a challenging time, as India was going through a period of uncertainty. He was a calm but strong leader. There was a resolve in his eyes, a firm determination that had the power to pull India out of its difficulties. Rao inherited a sinking ship, an economy that was in deep trouble, and he knew that the old ways wouldn't work. The policies that had been in place for decades could no longer move the country forward. He made a bold choice, a decision that would change India's future forever. Dr. Manmohan Singh, a respected economist, was made finance minister. This appointment wasn't just about a position, but the beginning of a new era. Singh, a technocrat, was known for his wisdom and experience. He brought integrity and expertise, not politics. His only goal was to pull the country out of the economic crisis. Rao and Singh held tense late-night meetings together, discussing for hours, paying close attention to every detail. They made a plan to save India. A plan that would not only solve immediate problems, but also lay a strong foundation for the future. They didn't just look at the numbers, but also understood the pain and hopes hidden behind those figures. They also debated the soul of the nation, trying to decide which path India should take. Should they stick to self-reliance, trusting their old policies, or should they embrace change, stepping in a new direction? Many warned against bowing to the IMF, fearing IT would put the country's sovereignty at risk. But Rao and Singh saw no other way. Their options were limited, and time was short. They became the architects of a new vision, a perspective that had the power to take India into the 21st century. This was a quiet revolution. This change happened slowly, but its impact was far-reaching. The world has changed, and we must accept this change. India must also change with IT, Rao emphasized. He believed that India had to find its place in the global economy. Singh presented the harsh truth, a truth that was difficult to hear but important to understand. We must act now. There is no other way. He made IT clear that inaction was not an option. In these midnight councils, after deep thought and discussion, the decision was made. India would not default. India would fulfill its financial commitments no matter what. IT would face the storm. India would not fear challenges, but bravely face them. The risk was huge. The fear of failure loomed everywhere. But the opportunity was just as big. India had a chance to start fresh, to build a better future. Rao and Singh chose transformation over collapse. They chose the path of development instead of ruin. The course of Indian history was about to change, and the foundation for this change was laid in those midnight councils. While leaders debated, the crisis hit the streets of India the hardest. Inflation shot up. Prices of daily essentials like oil and lentils went through the roof. Families stretched their budgets, watered down milk, and cut back on food. Long lines formed outside ration shops and petrol pumps, and people's anger flared in the heat. Small businesses closed, dreams shattered, and middle-class savings dwindled. For the poor, every day became a fight for survival. This crisis was a personal tragedy for millions, shaking their trust in the system. How did this happen to us? People asked, confused and upset. The pain on the streets needed more than just a bailout. IT needed real change. As the reserves started to run out, the government did something they never thought they would. They had to pawn the country's gold. Tons of gold in the dead of night was sent abroad from Mumbai under heavy guard. IT was a moment of national shame. A symbol of prosperity now became the solution to a crisis. There was an uproar in Parliament, anger among the public, and shock spread everywhere. But this move proved to be a masterstroke in crisis management. IT sent a message to the IMF that India was serious. Pawning the gold bought the government valuable time and opened the way for bold decisions. This was the lowest point, but IT laid the foundation for change. The gold wasn't sold. The intention was to bring IT back one day as a winner. After pledging the gold, all eyes were on the IMF in Washington, where India's future hung in the balance. The Indian team faced tough negotiators who demanded difficult changes: cut spending, devalue the rupee, end the license Raj, a system of strict rules, and open the doors to foreign money. These demands hit India's economy hard, sparking a huge debate across the country. Rao and Singh looked at every detail, trying to balance urgent needs with political risks. The opposition accused them of selling out the country, but failure was not an option. The Indian negotiators managed to get some breaks to protect the most vulnerable people. After weeks of high tension, the IMF approved the loan a lifeline, but with tough conditions. Now came the real test, putting these big changes into action in a complicated democracy. On July 24, 1991, Dr. Manmohan Singh stood in Parliament to present a historic budget. The chamber was tense. The opposition was ready to attack, and the government was worried but determined. Singh clearly stated that the crisis was real, but IT was also an opportunity. He called for freeing Indian entrepreneurship and breaking the chains of bureaucracy. Quoting Victor Hugo, he declared, "No power on earth can stop an idea whose time has come." Singh announced major reforms, ending industrial licensing, lowering import duties, welcoming foreign investment, and ending state monopolies. Every major step broke down the old system. Some saw freedom, others feared the unknown. The debate was fierce, but Rao and Singh remained firm. The budget passed. Reforms had begun. This was a second meeting with Destiny India's economic freedom. The cold crisis was turning into a new dawn. A ray of hope shone in the halls of power. A new chapter had begun. These reforms opened the floodgates. Indian entrepreneurship was finally out of its cage. Entrepreneurs grabbed new chances. Businesses grew and new ideas bloomed. Foreign companies were lining up to invest. This brought jobs, technology, and competition. For the first time, Indian shoppers had real choices. The marketplace was buzzing with new energy. The stock market soared, and foreign reserves were rebuilt. Some industries faced challenges, and for many, the changes were tough. But things were moving forward. Growth replaced scarcity. Cities changed. Highways and IT hubs were built. A new generation grew up feeling confident and connected to the world. The tiger was out of its cage and taking its first steps on the world stage. India was changing, fast. Today, the 1991 crisis feels like a distant memory, but its lessons are still with us. India's near collapse became its test, which built a strong new identity. The reforms by Rao and Singh brought growth, lifted millions out of poverty, and created a very large middle class. India transformed from an aid-receiving country to a global economic power. This journey wasn't easy. Challenges still exist, but the direction changed forever. The deepest crisis became the seed of opportunity. Bold leadership and faith in the people made the impossible possible. The gold mortgaged in desperation was returned with the pride of a nation. India's rise isn't just about economics. It's a story of spirit and new ideas. This is India's discovery, a nation finding its strength.